actuarial courses. I teach financial mathematics, which helps students prepare for one of the actuarial exams. And I teach technical writing for actuaries. So important for actuaries to be able to not just be technically strong, but have good communication skills as well. And those are the two things, the two courses that I teach at UConn. Yeah, so I'll tell you what. So first of all, Travelers is a great company, and I have done this in the past a few times, and I've worked with you a couple of times in the past, and I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you actually. Yeah. So one of the things I do. Some years ago, I had some surgery, and while I was recovering, I decided to write Jeopardy questions. This was maybe 6 years ago or so. I wrote Jeopardy questions. I couldn't really get out of a chair for a few months. So I wrote Jeopardy questions. Well, it turns out they've come in quite handy. Oftentimes on weekends to connect with my family, we'll play Jeopardy. And I've got all these questions that I made up myself. So that's one of my COVID pastimes. I'm also a pretty big sports fan, so I've been enjoying watching. Right now, I'm watching the World Series. I watch football, and as Eugene and I talked about a few minutes ago, I kind of enjoy the fact that one of the benefits of COVID is postponements of games. And so now not only do we have football on Thursdays and Sundays and Monday nights, but now sometimes we even have a Tuesday night football game. So so there's a couple of little hobbies that I have. I don't get as much exercise as I used to. I used to go out and meet with friends and play tennis and all. Now I go out to my mailbox once a day. That's a big part of my exercise. But I do try to get out and go for a long walk every day, find some time in the neighborhood and go out. So I do a little bit of that. But for the most part, especially at my age, I need to be careful. So I've been pretty much homebound since March. Had some travel plans canceled. I'm a big traveler. I love to go different places. So I've got plans on the horizon, and hopefully things will get better and I'll be out and about again. Perspective, it's easier to answer that question. From my perspective, it's a little harder to read students. When I'm in front of a classroom and I can see the students' faces, I can usually tell if they understand what's going on. If they don't understand what's going on, I can see the quizzical look on a face. It's a kind of an indicator that they're not quite sure. Remotely, it's much more difficult for a couple of reasons. One of my classes is pretty big, so even when students put their video on, there are these little rectangles, and it's hard to actually see the faces and the expressions. The other problem is a lot of students don't even put their video on. Either they don't have video capability, or they're shy and they don't want to put their faces out there. So it's very difficult to read students. The other thing that some students are shy about being on at all, and so that like in a classroom, they may sit in the back of the classroom, but they're not that far away. If they don't put their video on and they sit in the back of the classroom virtually, it's almost like they don't exist out there. You don't even know that they're there, and it can be difficult to connect with them. And I don't know if they understand or don't understand. And I ask questions. Do you understand? There's any questions? Blah blah blah. And sometimes students respond, and sometimes they don't. And they're just afraid to. Some students are afraid to speak up, and that's a big mistake. Students really need to speak up. Whether they're, just like as they would in the classroom, they need to do that online as well. Now, from the student perspective, I don't know. I've had students who seem to be doing just fine, but I've had other students who say that they're struggling with it. So I think it's an individual thing. I think it obviously takes some getting used to. I think we'd all much prefer to be face to face. I don't think there's any question about that. I'd prefer to be in the classroom, again, I was telling Eugene, I saved a few bucks on gas over the last few months, because I'm not traveling back and forth to campus. But I'd still much prefer to be in the classroom, and I'm convinced the students would rather be in the classroom too. But from the student perspective, it's a little harder for me to say. I think a lot of students struggle with it. I think it requires a little extra discipline on their part, especially if they have like several classes in a row. Imagine, if you got a Tuesday, Thursday schedule and you're running from 9 o'clock until 4 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and And of course, this is high school day we're talking to, right? So you may not be aware of a schedule that looks like that, but a college student might have classes just 2 days a week, or sometimes just 3 days a week, uh, and you can be staring at a computer for 5 6 hours. And I would think a high school student may have the same situation if their high school is remote. That could be hard. That can be really hard. I teach 2 consecutive classes. They're each an hour and a quarter in length, so that roughly I'm 2.5 3 hours um, continually on a computer, staring at a computer screen. But I'm teaching it, so I'm active. If I'm a student and I lose my focus and I become passive, I'm just kind of, my brain might be wandering, and for 9 to 4, that can be really hard. So I think from a student perspective, it's tougher than from my perspective, but it just requires discipline on the student's part. Yeah, well, I would say, and I've always recommended that students go to class. When I was a student, um, I found that oftentimes the teachers would give tests based on what they talked about in class. Obviously, teachers, instructors think the things they talk about are probably the most important topics, that need to be covered, right? Otherwise, why would they be talking about those specific things? And those are the things they typically test. So when I was a student, I would go to class. I would always go to class. I would never miss class. And as a result, when test time came, I would usually do pretty well because I knew the things that I needed to know based on what the professor thought I needed to know. I would say virtually, it's even more important to go to class. I think it can be really easy not to. Nobody's going to notice you're missing, right? You can get away with it, but you'll regret it in the long run. So going to class and being participating and all of those things, those are I think crucial if a student's going to be successful. It's too easy in college to say, oh, I'll do it, I'll study later, or I'll miss this class, I'll make it up. And that's a mistake. You need to be going to class and paying attention and speaking up and all those kinds of things, being very active. I think that'll make a student much more successful.
Yeah.
So not everybody can do it. It's hard. To be an actuary, you need to pass actuarial exams. Actuarial exams are very, very difficult. Pass ratios can, 40% pass ratio, and people who study for, 300 hours for an exam can come away failing that exam. People who've never failed anything in their life, who get, straight A's, suddenly find they're failing an actuarial exam, and they've never failed anything in their life, and suddenly they find something that they fail. It's a shock. Of course, you got to be resilient. You got to pick yourself. I failed actuarial exams along the way. Most actuaries I know have failed actuarial exams along the way. So it's hard. I've always said that there are 2 things necessary to be an actuary. One is to be smart, and one is to work hard. You can't do it without having both of those things going on. If you work really, really hard, but you don't have the capacity for it, it's just not going to work. It's sad to say, but it's the reality. But even if you're the smartest person in the room, you can't be an actuary. You're not going to pass those actuarial exams unless you work hard. So it really requires both of those things. But for those who can do it, it's a wonderful field, a very rewarding field. And you can be working in a traditional role. You work for an insurance company. You can work for the government. You can work in healthcare, life insurance, property and casualty insurance. There's a lot of different things you could do. Or you can have a very non-traditional career. I've had a non-traditional career myself. Now I'm teaching. Earlier years, I started out traditionally. I worked for a big insurance company, and I spent my first 15 years there. But then I went into my own business. I ran my own business. Then I wound up as a CEO, president and CEO of a publishing company that published actuarial materials. But I was CEO of a small publishing company, and then I went to work for a competing company that was out of the UK that provided seminars for students who are taking exams. So you can have a non-traditional career and be very successful. You can have a traditional career and be successful. You can work in any number of things. I run a summer boot camp. Travelers, in fact, has hosted it on more than one occasion. And And we bring in students and tell them all about the actual career. We bring in all different sizes and shapes of actuaries, actuaries who do life insurance, property and casualty insurance, government, all these different things. And one of the things the students come away with every year in the evaluation is, oh my gosh, I didn't realize actuaries could do so many things. I thought they just sat in a room and, and added numbers all day long or worked on computers all day long. And that's not, it's not untrue that actuaries do work with computers, but they do a whole lot more. They do a lot of analysis and communication is necessary. They meet with other people, and so being an actuary, no day is the same. Every day is a little bit different. You never know when you show up in the morning what's going to show up on your desk, and so it's an interesting field. It's lucrative, and it's fun. Um, so yeah, this is an interesting thing. So UConn is a center of actuarial excellence, which is internationally recognized by the Society of Actuaries, and it's also internationally recognized by the Casualty Actuarial Society. In 2016, we were a University Award winner, and again in 2019. The only two times we were eligible for it, we UConn had that, and it is a big advantage to go to a school that that has an actuarial program. Now, and why is that? And that's, well, because the focus for the students is to help them pass exams, take the right courses, and all that. Well, let's say you go to a school that doesn't have all that. How do you create that for yourself? And it's interesting. I went to UConn myself, but I went to UConn before there was an actuarial science program. So I realized that I had to pass a couple of actuarial exams on my own. Well, the first exam these days is probability. Well, every school offers probability, right? So you take Calc 1, you take Calc 2, maybe you take multivariable calculus, also known as Calc 3, and then you take probability and study on your own, and you can pass a probability exam. Financial math exam, which is the second exam, is a little harder to do on your own with college courses because some schools don't offer that. But some schools do, and you can, and even if the school doesn't, there are places to get the materials that you would need to study for the exam. So I would say you have to create your own actuarial program if you want to be an actuary and you're at a school that doesn't offer a program. There's also something called VEE. It stands for Validation by Educational Experience. To become a credentialed actuary, you need to not only pass exams, but you need to pass these VEE courses. They used to be exams, but the organizations that do the testing decided that you can take these courses while you're in college. And there are courses in economics, and there are courses in corporate finance, and there are courses in accounting. And on the life side, there's a course in statistics. On the casualty side, they cover that with an exam, so they don't have that same piece. But those courses you would get in college, and all colleges offer these courses. And some of those courses are pre-approved by the testing organizations, the Casualty Actuarial Society and the Society of Actuaries. But if they're not pre-approved, you can actually apply to have your course approved. So there's no need to go to a school that's a Center of Actuarial Excellence or a Casualty Actuarial Society award winner. You can go to any school that offers an actuarial program, or you can go to a school that doesn't even offer an actuarial program and kind of create your